Shalom Akim, all praise and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone. Salutations to you brothers doing the work in truth and sincerity. This is just going to be another short one, basically about the Jim Crow laws being on the books still. And this is an article from, from the Huffington Post that I pulled up. And all I'm going to read is the last paragraph because I want to get straight to the point. The last paragraph of this article, what is it entitled? Jim Crow laws still on many states' books. So, without further ado, this is the last paragraph that I'm going to read. The known and unknown Jim Crow laws that are still on the books, and the reluctance, refusal, and downright resistance of state legislators and many voters to dump them are more than a hideous reminder of America's shameful racial past. And that's all I'm going to read there, because that's all I need to read. You can read the whole article if you like, but that's all I need to read. They will not dump these Jim Crow laws. Why? Because you are still slaves, you so-called Negroes, Indians, Latinos. Especially the tribe of Judah, the so-called Negroes. You are still slaves. That's why they won't dump these laws. They're reluctant, refusal, and downright resistance. Actually, it's just downright refusal, to be honest. They will not dump these laws because to be an American, you have to be what's known as a so-called white person. And I say so-called because we in the know already know that the term white didn't come about until 1681. And that is from the information that the brother Malcolm, elder in Chicago, had put out there from the studies of the historian Theodore Allen, and the studies of what is her name, Jacqueline Badalora, and forget the name of the other two that was mentioned in the video. But you can watch his video, and he did a great video on that. So and by his, of course, his name is Elder Malcolm from Chicago. His page is Maccabean Spirit. GMS Maccabean Spirit, if you want to check out that video. But us in the know that already know is the term white came from 1681, and it was used in no law books and no terms before then. The term white is a social construct for Edomites, basically. But like I say, this video is basically just saying that these laws, the so-called Jim Crow laws, are still on the books. The slave laws are still on the books. They may not be enforced widely because they're going to enforce them later. That's why. But you are still slaves. And I also wanted to read a part of this article. And I'm going to highlight the one I'm going to read, so when I come back to it. But the name of this article is How Watermelons Became a Racist Trope. I'm just going to read one paragraph of here. And it says, emancipation, of course, destroyed that relationship, talking about the master and slave relationship. Black people grew, ate, and sold watermelons during slavery. But now, when they did so, it was a threat to racial order. To Edomites, it seemed now as if blacks were flaunting their newfound freedom, living off their own land, selling watermelons in the market, and worst of all, enjoying watermelons together in the public square. One Edomite family in Houston was devastated when their nanny Clara left their household shortly after the emancipation in 1865. Henry Evans, a young Edomite boy to whom Clara had likely been a second mother, cried for days after she left. But when he bumped into her on the street one day, he rejected her attempts to make peace when Clara offered him some watermelon. Henry told her that he would not eat what free Negroes ate. So basically, that's just explaining a little bit of how Esau basically demonized watermelons and made it a joke for Jake. And this, this came from the Jim Crow era and how they demonized watermelons. You see the title, The Coon's Trademark, a Watermelon Raiser, Chicken, and a Coon. Why? Watermelons was used because it was easy to grow and it was an abundance of food back then, back during the time of the emancipation. It was easy to grow and it was an abundant food. So Jake made a lot of money off of it. Why razors? Because Jake was obsessed with trying to look like Esau. That's why he got the coon as last. Why the chicken? Because chickens were easy to raise. Eggs could be sold. Chicken had meat, so it was easy to raise. It was an easy source of meat, and you can make a lot of money off of the eggs. That's why eggs are sold in every supermarket in abundance to this day. That's why they equate watermelons and chickens with Jake, because during when Jake got his so-called freedom, which is not freedom as we're learning right now, because those laws that they have to keep us oppressed are still on the books. They actually mocked us, and they made it. They basically made fun of us for making money. And also during that time, during the 1920s, 1919, 1920s, when Jake had all these thriving communities, what did they do? They brought the National Guard in and destroyed all these thriving communities. You hear about Black Wall Street at that time. I had made a video a while back concerning all the Black Wall Streets. Well, I didn't have all of them, but all these communities at this time that Jake was a part of, you could consider Black Wall Street. The elder Malcolm was also talking about the Black Belt in Chicago. All of it is during this Black Wall Street time, because most, if not all, Jake's communities thrived. And Jake was basically the economy of the Americas. The only thing Esau had was an army. He didn't have a thriving economy. And all the communities that Jake had right after slavery were the economies of the Americas. And what did they do? They destroyed them all and made laws so that Jake couldn't have any more communities of his own ever again. Jake had thriving banks. Jake had bus stations. Jake even had an airport. That's why I say back then, during the early 1900s, Jake was living in cities that we have today back then. Esau was the one who didn't have developed cities. And that's why they destroyed the thriving communities of you Israelites and then forced you to attend their schools so they can learn how you did it. That's what Esau did. That's what Esau does. He's a thief. He stole everything from you Israelites. And this was just a way to mock you when you came out of slavery making money. And from these simple things, the watermelon and the chicken, which the watermelon is one of the healthiest fruits on the planet. And yes, chickens are easy to raise and their eggs easy to sell. It's easy to make money off of it. That's why you can't own them. They don't want you Israelites to have anything that is self-sufficient. So of course, they looked at it as a threat and they mocked you for it. However, that threat made thriving communities for Jake. So now you can't own any of it. And they make it hard for you to even get possession of anything. That's why it's so ridiculous that you Jakes are going to places like Popeyes for their chicken sandwiches. It's not what it's all about, man. It's not your culture, man. But let me get to these scriptures now. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 15. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that putteth thy bottle to him, and maketh him drunken also, that thou mayest look upon their nakedness. Because all the things you Jakes are doing today, basically Esau is putting the bottle to you so he can talk mess about you. Just like this fried chick this Popeye's chicken thing, man. He purposely put out put out this information, purposely made it so it wouldn't be enough to feed all you Jakes, and then he just watched where the cards would fall. And you Jakes did not disappoint, man. Y'all did all the idiotic shit that he imagined that you would do because Esau studies you Jakes and he knows how you're gonna act. And you acted just that way. Thou art filled with shame for your glory. Drink drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. Why? Because Esau looks at slavery and Jim Crow and all that as something shameful. And what do? They make sure these laws stay on the books. The reluctance, refusal, and downright resistance of state legislators and many voters to dump them are more than a hideous reminder of America's shameful racial past. They call it a shameful racial past, but they still have these laws on the books, and they refuse to let these laws go. Why? Because they need these laws so you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Indian, Latinos, will not surpass them. Because it's easy to surpass these Edomites because, hey, according to the Bible, as it is written, they are the basest of men. But how have you Israelites become so base? By trying to be like them. This is Psalms chapter 94, verse 20. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frame its mischief by a law? And that's all they did. That's why these laws are still on the books. These racial laws are still on the books. Because that's what they do. That's why they still use those mocking terms against you. My watermelon eating pickaninnies and chicken eating niggas, man. And it was and during the time of Jake's so-called freedom, it was a good thing, and they talked about it. They basically made up all these things about it so people would look at it as a bad thing, and not just anybody, them. It made them feel better because they're the devil, of course. But you Jakes don't even so much as bat an eye when they mock you like that. Matter of fact, you Jakes have accepted it to this day now when they mock you, instead of looking up the true past of why they do it. This is Job chapter 15. I'm going to start at 31. Let not him that is deceived trust in vanity, for vanity shall be his recompense. And that's for you devils, man. Vanity will be your recompense. Don't trust in your deceit. It shall be accomplished before his time, and his branch shall not be green. It's going to be accomplished before you die, and you will not finish what you started. He shall shake off his unripe grape as the vine. He shall cast off his flower as the olive. For the congregation of hypocrites shall be desolate, and fire shall consume the tabernacles of bribery. They conceive mischief and bring forth vanity, and their belly prepare deceit. And this was one of the biggest deceits. All these stereotypes that they put against you Israelites, that it's all deceit. And yes, watermelon, one of the most nutritious fruits that's on the planet. It's all deceit that they call you watermelon eating pickaninnies. They did over 20 years of mocking Jake just to get this to stick. Because when you read this whole article, it talks about how all nations was eating watermelons. before Edomites, before the 20-year Edomite demonization of the watermelon and the chicken, because Jake was using chicken, one as a cheap meat, two, to sell its products, and made a lot of money off of it, fresh out of slavery, to the point that Jake had thriving communities in the early 1900s over the ones that were that had slavery over them, over the ones that oppressed them in slavery, to the point that they had to bring their National Guard and destroy all these thriving communities and make what we have here today, and keep these same laws on the books to make sure that we don't come up again. And this is another this is a Wikipedia, the Black Codes. The Black Codes were laws passed in 1865 and 1866 by southern states, and it's really not southern states because they were also passed in northern states, as it says right here. In the United States, after the American Civil War, in order to restrict African Americans' freedom and to compel them to work in a labor economy based on low wages or debt. Now, is that happening today? Yes, it is happening today. Work in a labor-based economy based on low wages and debt. That is happening today. They will not take these black codes, Jim Crow laws off the books. Why? Because Jake can easily surpass them because they have the Spirit of the Lord in them. That's why. This is Isaiah 10:1. Woe to them that decree unrighteous decrees and write grievousness which they have prescribed, to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right of the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. And that's what they're doing, is robbing the fatherless. And the fatherless basically is the godless, which we have a God. The Most High, our God, the creator of the universe, named Yahweh, and his son Yahweh Shai, whom he put everything except for himself under. So while we don't have this knowledge, we're fatherless. And they want to keep this knowledge away from you. However, this knowledge is already out there, so there's nothing that they can do. These black codes, these laws are all still on the books. Whether it be in the southern states or the northern states, it's still on the books. And in all the United States. Hey, they call it the United States for a reason. They're united in this deceit. But I wanted to bring out the fact, I wanted to bring out where this this stereotype of watermelons and chicken came from, man. Because Esau just hates for Jake to have anything. That's why the scriptures say he'll put enmity between the serpent and the woman, man. Because these devils cannot stand you Israelites. And that's about it on this video. I'm gonna stop it right there. And till the next time, all praise and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem Kakodash. Double honors to the apostles, great millstone. Salutations to you brothers doing the work in truth and sincerity, and you few sisters that may be listening and learning, and to the speckled bird around the world. And with that, I say shalom.